Okay, solving equations. So we're going to do linear, literal, absolute value, and quadratic. So linear equations, you guys should know how to solve these. So first, we're going to distribute that in because you always want to get rid of parentheses first. Remember PEMDAS. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division at the same time. So it's just left to right. And then addition and subtraction, PEMDAS. Okay? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Or I'm sure there's other things that you've remembered. But we multiply that in, so you get 64 plus 8k. And then we want to get all of our variables to one side, all of our constants to the other side. So 1 plus 64, that's 65. And then let's move over that 5k. So you add 5k, and you get 39 equals 65 plus 13k. Now subtract the 65, and you get negative 26 equals 13k. Divide by 13, and you get k equals negative 2. Okay, and you can always double check that by plugging it back into the formula, the starting equation. So this one, we have 4y minus 7 over negative 7 equals 1 minus 6y. We're going to multiply both sides by negative 7, because those negative 7's cancel. So you're left with 4y minus 7. On the right, you're left with negative 7 plus 42y. Now move that 4y over, and you get negative 7 equals negative 7 plus 38y. Add the 7, and you get 0 equals 38y. Divide by 38, and you get y equals 0. This is a common mistake right here. So a lot of people get to the point where it'll say 38y equals 0. And then they're just like, oh, it's no solution. There's no way that that will ever equal 0. But there is a way. If you plug in 0 right here, 38 times 0 is 0. Okay, so when you see this, just know that the answer is 0. It is not no solution. It is 0. Okay? So this one, let's distribute that 4/3 in first. And distribute the negative in. Whenever there's a negative in front of a parenthesis, you have to distribute it in. So 4/3 times 9w is 12w. 4/3 times 51 is 68. Negative times 68 is negative 68. Negative times 5w is 5w. So then combine those and you get 12w minus 68 equals 12w minus 68. Wait, that's the same thing. So that's the same thing on both sides. This means that all real numbers are solutions. So we could plug in any number and you'll get the same exact thing on both sides. So that means that w is negative infinity to positive infinity. You could also write that as w equals all real numbers. That's like, it's just an R with 2 lines. Okay, this one's a little bit better than that one. So this one, that should have been, on your notes, it should have been a J, not an I. That's my bad. So we're solving this for J. So these are literal equations. These are equations where you're not going to get a numeral answer or a numeric answer. We're just going to get letters in our answer. So we're going to get variables in our answer. So we're solving this for J. So first let's get rid of the fraction. So multiply both sides by J. What just happened? Oh, I guess I did not finish this. So multiply both sides by J. So those cancel. And you're left with 8h equals 18jk. Okay, and we're solving for J. So we're trying to get this by itself right here. So I'm going to divide by 18k. Divide by 18k. And you get J equals 8h over 18k. Well, I know that 2 goes into both of those. So 2 goes into 8 4 times. 2 goes into 18 9 times. So that's going to be 4h over 18k. And that solves for J. Okay? That was weird. Now let's do this one. So let's solve this for Y. So first I'm going to subtract the 3x over. So you get 4y squared equals 7z minus 3x. You can't combine those, so you just put a subtraction sign. Divide by 4. So you get y squared equals 7z minus 3x divided by 4. To get rid of a square root, or square, you square root it. So y equals the square root of 7z minus 3x over 4. Let's look at this one. So we're solving for m now, which means we want to get all of our m's to one side, everything else to the other side. So I'm going to subtract that mn over to the right side. So you get negative p equals 2m minus mn. Now on the right side, I still have to get m by itself, so I'm going to factor out an m. So you'll get m times 2 minus n. Then we can divide by that 2 minus n, and you get m equals negative p over 2 minus n. Now, if you want to get rid of that negative, you can multiply both sides, or you can multiply the right side by negative 1 over negative 1, and you get m equals p over n minus 2. Okay, same answer. I wouldn't mark you wrong either way. All right, absolute value equations. So these pop up on ACT sometimes. So absolute value means how far the number is away from 0. So like the absolute value of 6, well, that's 6 spaces away from 0. So that's this right here, right? Oops. Okay, so that's why it's 6. But negative 6 is also 6 because it's also 6 spaces away from 0. So like the absolute value of negative 9 would be 9. The absolute value of negative 400 would be 400 because that's how far away it is from 0. Okay? So when solving these equations, that means you're going to have two cases because for every absolute value, or for every value, you have two absolute values. Okay? So in this one, we have negative 2 minus 10w equals 98. Well, it's already set equal to a number, so that we can just set it equal to the positive and negative of that. So that's going to be negative 2 minus 10w equals 98, and negative 2 minus 10w equals negative 98. Then solve both of these equations. So now these are just linear equations. So I'm going to add the 2 over, and you get negative 10w equals 10, or 100, sorry. Divide by negative 10, you get w equals negative 10. Here add the 2, and you get negative 10w equals negative 96. Divide by negative 10, and you get w equals 96 over 10, which is 48 over 5. Now, last thing you have to do is you have to plug it in and double check that it works. So if you plug in negative 10, you will get 98. And to do this in your calculator, let me grab a calculator. You go, so if you click math and go to the right, it says ABS. So it's math, and then you go to the right, and then it's ABS, parenthesis, and then it will pull up the absolute value for you. Okay? And then when you plug in 48/5, you also get 98, so we're good. Let's look at this one. So first we have to solve this for the absolute value. So I'm going to divide by negative 4. So that's 7 minus a. The absolute value of 7 minus a equals 9. So that's 7 minus a equals 9, and 7 minus a equals negative 9. Subtract the 7, you get negative a equals 2, which means a equals negative 2. Same thing here, subtract the 7, negative a equals 16, negative 16, so a equals 16. Plug it in, and I plugged it into this equation. You could plug it in up here, and you'll get the same. You'll end up with 36 right here, but you'll still get the right answer. So you plug in negative 2, you get 9. You plug in 16, you get 9, so we're good. Okay, this one, subtract the 1 first, so you get negative 10. Absolute value of 9r plus 3 equals negative 30. Divide by negative 10, so 9r plus 3 equals 3. So 9r plus 3 equals 3, and 9r plus 3 equals negative 3. Subtract the 3 over, 9r equals 0. Remember, that's not no solution. You can still divide by 9, and so it's r equals 0. Here divide by, or subtract 3. You get 9r equals negative 6. Divide by 9, and you get r equals negative 2/3. We can plug it in, and it works for both of those. Now this is where it gets a little trickier. So I'm going to show you one way, and then I'm going to go over it another way, because I was doing an ACT practice test, and it did it this way, so I just want to show you both. But first, we're going to add the 5 over. So you get 6n minus 7 equals 3n plus 5. So here, that's going to be 6n minus 7 equals 3n plus 5, and 6n minus 7 equals negative 3n plus 5. So we just put that negative right there. The way it did it on the ACT is they wrote it like this. So negative 6n minus 7 equals 3n plus 5. And either way, you'll get the same answer. So I did it this way. You could also do it this way, and you have to recognize that those are the same thing. Okay, those are the same thing. So let's solve this. So subtract that 3n, so you get 3n minus 7 equals 5. Add the 7, so you get 3n equals 12. So divide by 3, and you get n equals 4. Here, distribute that negative in, so 6n minus 7 equals negative 3n minus 5. Add the 3n, so 9n minus 7 equals negative 5. Add the 7, so 9n equals 2. Divide by 9, n equals 2 ninths. Plug it in. That first one works, so I plugged it into the left side and I got 17. Plugged it into the right side, got 17. And then plug in the next one and you got 17 thirds. Plug it into the right side, also got 17 thirds. They do not always work. Sometimes you will get ones that do not. So it's very important to plug the numbers in to double check. It was purely coincidence that they all worked in this video. Okay? Let's get into quadratic equations. You should know these. So y squared minus 13y minus 30 equals 0. When we have three terms like that, and we can factor it, let's factor it. So that's y minus 15, y plus 2. So y minus 15 equals 0, y plus 2 equals 0, so y equals 15 and negative 2. This one, 16d squared minus 81 equals 0. That's the difference of squares. So I can square root both sides. And that would be 4d minus 9 and 4d plus 9. Set them both equal to 0. So you get d equals plus or minus 9/4 by adding the 9 over, dividing by 4, or subtracting the 9 over and dividing by 4. Now this one, 4w squared minus 10w. Let's get all of it to one side. And then let's factor out what we can factor out. So I can factor out a 2w here. So that's going to be 2w times 2w plus 5. Well, I can set 2w equal to 0 and 2w plus 5 equal to 0. And you end up with w equals 0 and w equals negative 5/2. Sorry, I'm skipping some steps right at the bottom, but I think you guys should know how to do that. Okay? This one, so 3/2 x squared plus 11 equals 59. So since I only have an x squared, I'm just going to move the 11 over. So I'm going to subtract 11. So you get 3/2 x squared equals 48. Get rid of that fraction, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. You're left with 3x squared equals 96. Divide by 3, so x squared equals 32. Square root both sides, so you get x equals plus or minus the square root of 32. So when you're solving and you have a number, you have to put that plus or minus, which is going to be 4 square roots of 2 when you break it down. Okay? Now this one. So I'm going to move everything to the right side because I want that k squared to be positive. So I'm just going to add k squared and then add 8 so that everything's positive. And now we need to see what can multiply to be 8 and add to be 10. Well, there's nothing that can multiply to be 8 and add to be 10. So we have to use the quadratic formula. Okay? It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If you think of that Pop Goes the Weasel song, you can do it to that. So it's like x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There's lots of other ones you can remember. Quadratic formula is a good thing to remember though. Okay, so we're going to plug it in. So I know a equals 1, b equals 10, c equals 8. So that's going to be negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8 all over 2 times 1. That's going to be negative 10 plus or minus 10 squared is 100. 4 times 1 times 8 is 32 all over 2. So that's going to be negative 10 plus or minus square root of 68 over 2. Well, the square root of 68 breaks down to 2 square roots of 17. So that's going to be negative 10 plus or minus 2 square roots of 17 over 2. 2 goes into 10, 2 goes into 2. So that's going to be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 17. Okay, fun stuff. Remember to take the quiz, and I will see you guys whenever I see you.